Welcome to the Board Game Community Show. I'm your host, Riley Stock, and today we've got Laurie from Stop, Drop, and Roll. How are you doing?
Hi, Riley. I'm doing pretty well, thanks today, yeah.
Good. Thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Well, let's just dive right in. What got you into board gaming?
Well, I've been involved in board gaming and such since I was really young. My father introduced it to me back when I was, maybe 8, something like that. We used to play Steve Jackson games, Warlock of Fire, Top Mountain, and Hero Quest, stuff like that. Just, I have pretty much lived and breathed sort of board games ever since. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those weird things where arguably I've probably played more old games from like the 80s and 90s than I've actually played from modern times, which is really weird and completely off of what most people's experience is. But it's meant that like I've sort of all the various ideas and such that I have are built on like years of gradual evolution of what board gaming is. I've seen the whole journey from it being a very, very niche thing to exploding across Kickstarter and all the rest of that. And I think seeing it explode like that made me realize that, like, well, if they can do it, then all you need is the right group of people and we can do it too. So, yeah, when I got my team together with SDR, with Ree and Rob and Jasper, yeah, it was time to hit it.
Oh, that is awesome. How did you all meet?
Well, Rob is a friend of a friend, and it was one of those things of like we hit it off pretty well as it was, and then he happened to mention that he was really into board games of pretty much the same sort of time period. Like he grew up on sort of there was an old I think it's Fury Road, something along those lines, where it was like a game where you'd place boards so that you had an endless track and you had Mad Max cars that blew each other up and all this sort of thing, and also Hero Quest and all that sort of thing. So we were really bonding over it. And then we were joint friends with another friend of mine, Stuart Lawrence, who had a game he was making as well called Pugs and Mugs. And we were talking about how much, he really wanted to release it. I wanted to release my own games. And my games tend to be a bit bigger. They're kind of more large in scope and scale. And so as a result, it was like, well, maybe we could run with Pugs and Mugs. Rob is a phenomenal illustrator and cartoonist, and I want to start a board game company. So, hell, let's all team up and release Pugs and Mugs and make it happen. And naturally, that was the exact moment that the world decided to be hit by a pandemic. So it was like, oh, you want to do something fun? Okay, cool. How about you do it on hard mode?
Yeah, welcome to the industry. Good luck.
Exactly. But we figured, like, hard is only, like, it's not hard if you don't know what it's like, if it's easy. So all we're doing is learning the same way we would be learning if we were coming into it in an easy time. The difference is we're going to learn a lot more, a lot faster. So, yeah. So we decided to go for it anyway.
Oh, that is really cool. And Pugs and Mugs, you guys launched it, and then you canceled it, and then you brought it back. You guys learned from something.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, it wasn't even so much that we cancelled it, so much as we obviously had to, but we got so much feedback from so many people in the industry and also in like people who are fans of the game, who basically went, this is really good, but like here are the ways that it kind of makes it really difficult to, like, you're going to have trouble funding this. And we were like, well, this is our first ever game. We barely really know what we're doing. So, you know what? We'd rather do this right than stick to our guns. There's no point in clinging to our ignorance, as it were. So, yeah, we rebooted the campaign, and it was so worth it. Like, if anyone's looking to be a board game designer out there, absolutely just throw yourself into the community, because everyone is so helpful and so eager to, like, give. People will bend over backwards to help you learn what you need to learn in order to be a success. There's no real competition or anything like that. Everyone's just a passionate enthusiast,
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I've mentioned it several times on this show before, but the community is just like, you're going to create a game that I love. So like, you're not competition. You're going to make something I love. Like,
yeah, exactly. And that's to be honest, that whole attitude was part of what made me want to be a part of the design community and made me feel like I could go for it in the board game world, because there was none of this kind of corporatism. It was all kind of everyone's on the same playing field and everyone's talking and everyone's like, yeah, how can we help each other get there?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's such an awesome thing for any community or business of any kind. So yeah.
Yeah, and it seems so rare. I know a lot of other communities aren't that way. They're not really communities. Yeah. They're, I don't know.
The important thing is the good ones are phenomenal. That's what's the important takeaway there. And, when you find those amazing places that you're like, oh yeah, these are just lots of really passionate people who are really, who are really enthusiastic about finding different ways to have fun and get different messages or types of mechanics and stuff like that, and experiment with them and play with them. And like, yeah, we're all just big adult kids who happen to also make money from it. Like, rock on. How would you not want to be in that?
Oh, I love it. What are some of your favorite games?
So my favorite game of all time is probably Robo Rally. It's a Richard Garfield game, and it's one of those games where you can't ever guarantee who is going to win at any point. Not because it's like completely luck based, but because you can put down this amazing, in case anyone listening has not played or know Robo Rally, it's basically a game where you race robots across a factory floor with giant stompy machines or like lasers and all sorts of other stuff coming at you. You have to race from one side of the factory to the other side of the factory, and you get programming cards at the beginning of the turn, and you need to put these programming cards down in front of you, face down, turn left, move forward 1 space, move forward 2 spaces, turn right, U-turn, all this sort of thing. And you put them down in what you think is going to be, the correct way to be able to get from point A to point B. And you're like, cool, I have this random hand, I'll do my best with it, no problem. But the thing is that everyone goes at once. So everyone turns over the first one. And so you might go forward 1 space, but someone who's like where you're going to end up goes after you and shunts you along by like 1 space to your left. And then all of a sudden, all of your next phases have to play out. So you're turning over the next one, it's like move forward 2. And it's like, oh no, if I go forward 2, I'm going to end up on a conveyor belt and start going off in a completely random direction. But you still have to play all your other cards. So your robot is just a dumb robot. It just keeps going through the programming phases. So you end up doing all sorts of nuts things. And it's just this brilliant combination of like you're putting cards down to be like, yes, this will get me to where I need to go, and at the same time, everyone else's attempt at doing that messes everyone up, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and I love the game to bits. It's quite a long game. Because everyone ends up all over the place, but nonetheless, for those days when you can get it out, it's brilliant. So that's my favorite one.
That is awesome. I'm glad you had a favorite.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like, oh, it's so hard to choose, but no,
I know. There is one certainty in this life, and that's Robo Rally is great.
Oh, I love it. What was your first game design like?
My first game design was a weird little thing that hit me like a bolt out of the blue. I literally woke up with a fully formed idea in my head, and was just like, well, I've just got to get this down right now. It was a game called Argumentative, and basically it was a little. It was basically just a deck of cards, and there were I think it was 5 different suits. There was aggressive, passive aggressive, victim, obstinate, and objective. And basically, certain argument stances blocked other certain argument stances. And your objective of the game was to get the last word. So if you couldn't play a card, you're out, effectively, trying to whittle down each person. But at the same time, in amongst the deck, you have tensions rise cards where effectively, when they come out, they have to be put down on the table. And so that stance now costs 2 cards instead of 1 whenever you play it. So it gradually locked off and made it harder to be able to progress. But at the same time, each of those cards had like special abilities on them. So, for example, you draw an extra card, or you force someone else to play an additional card, or you're able to ignore someone else's argument if it affects you. Similar like that. So it was pretty good. I don't know whether or not I'll ever release it, but it was, for a first crack at a game, it was pretty good fun. It certainly brought out in people a lot of harsh truths as they looked at these argument cards, and each of them had like a sort of line giving an example of that type of argument. So, yeah, basically you would have sort of an aggressive line that you would have to read out when you play the card, etc. And a lot of people would sort of read these and go, "Oh no, I say that. Oh, that's me. Oh God." And then they go through these argument stances and just be like, "Oh, oh no, I'm seeing myself in so many of these cards. This is how I argue."
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it was like, this is fun and at the same time disquieting.
Yeah, kind of shine a light on yourself and be like,
yeah,
okay, well, now I have to acknowledge that I have this toxic or this like bad, or well, it's just like,
yeah.
I mean, they're normal things that you go through, but you just have to recognize it and
totally.
adjust. So that's really cool. That sounds fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was I think it was self-awareness more than anything that it brought out. And they were all tactics. Like, they weren't ever morally presented in any way. It wasn't ever like, this is bad. There are situations when taking on a certain stance is necessary, and that's fine. But yeah, it was obviously all the phrases were overdone for comedic effect. But nonetheless, I think shining through that were moments of, oh, actually, I'm more passive aggressive than I thought.
Oh, that's incredible. Do you take that into other designs as well? Like, I don't know, there's like a self-awareness to it. Like, do you bring that to your other games as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm autistic and also have ADHD. So it means that in terms of communicating with people, that's something I both, it's something that I approach from a very different perspective from most people. And as a result, I guess it means I've thought about it a lot more than most people might. So yeah, communication and the way in which we view how we are as people is something that really fascinates me as a whole. So naturally, anything that fascinates me ends up being in a game. So it's one of those things where you have to balance out what I may find fascinating with what is actually fun. You can have a really intricate and interesting game on the surface that is like, yeah, the way this fits together is really cool. But is it fun? I'm not so sure. Like, you gotta find that balance. And if you can crack that, awesome. But it does not always work out.
Yeah, definitely. Have you had many that haven't worked out very well? That you would care to share about?
Any designer is going to come back and be like, there are so many ideas I've had that the moment I put pen to paper, I was like, this is garbage. Why did I ever think this was good? This was a 1 a.m. idea that did not turn around well. And I think anyone will have that. But I think I'm trying to. The trouble is that when you have so many ideas, the ones that aren't great, you just kind of jettison. And I suppose there was one, actually. I had one called, oh goodness, I called it Uncharted Waters. And basically it was a game about being pirates out in the middle of the South China Sea, except it was modern day pirates. So you had like sort of scavenged World War II tech strapped to boats and such, and you sort of chased each other around and did missions and everything like this. But to be honest with you, the biggest draw to it for me was the idea of this. You had branching storylines for each mission. So the way that you approached a mission that you had, so let's say, for example, you had a mission of, you're pirates, you're the bad guys, you're doing whatever for money. So maybe you are going into it in order to, I don't know, you're looking to burn down some trees on an island to be able to allow a hotel chain to move onto it, right? undercover little thing that they definitely can't get away with, but you definitely can. And you'll get paid for that. And maybe you'll do it by force, or maybe you'll do it by smarts, maybe you'll do it by social. And depending on what you picked, you would take one of those cards, and it would have an event that would play based on that. And so you use one of your crew to do a smarts event. Okay, cool. So you draw a smarts card. This is what happens as a result of you attempting this by a smarts. And then the next thing that comes on from it has to be either a social or a force one. And so as a result, it kind of created a kind of branching storyline of events, whilst at the same time making, how to put it, like, it meant that you had to diversify your crew's abilities and such like that. And it was cool in theory. And then we played it, and not only was it really, really long, but it was also just really difficult to have any idea what was going to come up at any one time. And so you were just never ready for anything. And so it was like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, guess I'm screwed. Next. Okay. And so it all just kind of fell apart. And
oh, no.
Yeah, it's one of those things, really. But the ideas that you take from, that don't work out, you bring those bits into other games. Other ideas that you have, you go, this can work in this. And you just kind of, I don't know, almost Frankenstein monster bits that did work and stick them into other things that do work. And then maybe all of it will work. And that's kind of how that happens.
That totally makes sense to me. And that sounds like a fascinating idea. Like, as you were saying that, I was getting excited. Like, ooh, I would play this game. But
cool.
As you say that, it's like, oh, yeah, you are kind of losing what you can do pretty quick. And that's interesting.
It. And so it was really difficult to actually finish a mission because you had no control over what was coming next. And most of the time, the watchword for designers is, when in doubt, make it simpler. And, I guess it's Occam's razor in a lot of ways. You're cutting off anything that isn't necessary.
Yeah.
And hell, maybe I will come back to that. Maybe it will end up being something that works really well down the line when I have more notches of game design under my belt. But we'll see.
You mentioned that your dad was the one that got you into board gaming. Mm-hmm. Have you gotten to play like a lot of your designs with him?
Oh yeah, I mean, so my dad is Jasper, who is part of the company.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, so he's like he's actually a pretty important part of this whole working of everything, and he's very enthusiastic about any game idea I come up with, even if they're terrible. So we end up, here's my prime playtester, which I throw idea eggs at, and they either go splat or he catches them. So
that's awesome. Cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. It's cool. It's also kind of, Rhea is my partner, and obviously Jasper's my father. So it's very much a almost family run sort of company. Almost. That said, Bob's awesome. He's basically family. In case you're listening, Bob.
He's the fourth wheel. You need him, otherwise it's a tricycle.
Absolutely. No, we need him for proper balance.
Oh, that's really, really cool. I didn't realize all of that. So cool to see the inside of all that.
Yeah.
How long have you and Reed been together?
Coming up to 8 years.
Oh, cool.
So it's been quite a long one, but going great. Very happy. So
yeah,
all good.
Hopefully you wouldn't say otherwise. I mean, it would make for a weird conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I know she's going to listen to this, so maybe when after the podcast I can spill my guts about everything. Oh my god! But no, I'm joking. Everything's all good. I mean, let's be honest here. I've got a partner who not only is a whiz at social media, but also is willing to play and help design board games. I mean, could I ask for more?
Yeah, exactly. I enjoy what she posts on social media. I always see your company's posts and always enjoy them, and yeah, so she's doing a great job.
She certainly is. I mean, we wouldn't be what we are without her. As I say, I'm autistic, and I really struggle with social media. I struggle with socializing in general that doesn't involve me being able to see someone's face, which makes it really difficult to do social media and that. And I often, when I'm posting, I often sort of say to her, like, "Is this okay? Is this correct?" And she'll kind of pull me up and be like, "Actually, that's maybe not quite okay," or "Actually, yes, that's totally fine. Post it. It's all good."
Nice.
But I have to do that mental check, otherwise I am flailing in the dark.
Yeah. It's good that she can do that and be that for you.
That's it.
I need to start doing that, passing it on to my wife and being like, "Hey, is this okay to post?"
Yeah.
I do that with family texts where we'll be doing like a group text and I'm like, "Hey, Kimmy, is this okay to say? It's a joke." And she's like, "Nope, don't say that."
Don't say that. That would cause a lot of arguments, and mostly ones I would hear.
Yeah. Well, let's move to Earth Rising. That's your guys' current project, right?
Totally is. That's right. Yeah, we've been working on it for coming up to 2 years now. So, yeah, it's super exciting to be, getting it out there, and it's getting some fantastic reception. Yeah, I can't wait, to be honest, to get it going.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. Like, I love the look of it. I saw that I could go in and play it. I just saw that today. I wish I saw that earlier, because then I would have done it before we chatted.
Oh, well, if you fancy a game, I'm more than welcome to give you a game sometime.
Okay, let's just do it right now. We'll do it on the podcast live.
You might want some visual input for that one, I think.
All right. But I love the idea of the game, and also that you guys are using it as like a positive message, as well as putting your money where your design is. And giving back to kind of fight.
Absolutely.
What's going on?
It was actually really important to me from the get-go that if we were going to release a game like this, that it was something that not only spoke about it, but actively gave people the chance to feel like by getting it, they were moving towards it. When you're, if 50% of our profits are going to the charities that are making this happen for real, that means that anyone who buys a copy is basically putting that money into making Earth Rising's aim actually happen.
Yeah. And why don't we talk? I didn't explain what Earth Rising was, and you'll be able to say it way better than me. So do you want to describe that?
Totally. Okay. So basically, Earth Rising is it's a medium weight cooperative board game about transforming society into a sustainable version, a sustainable future. You've got 20 years to do it. And effectively, the society as it is putting a lot of strain on our planet and its ecosystems. And if we utilize basically practices that are already in existence, no science fiction, nothing that hasn't been invented yet, things that we actually are already using and have already been proven to work, and we put those into place in ways that they replace the things that are causing the problems, we're able to actually not just revitalize our planet and put ourselves back on a sustainable future, but on top of that, we're also able to make life a hell of a lot better for actual people. There are effectively two, in quotation marks, problems in Earth Rising. One of them is strain that our practices are putting on our ecological burdens, and the other is poverty, which in turn creates strain. And a successful game of Earth Rising will see you tackling both of them. So there is no sustainable society that allows poverty, because ultimately any society that allows poverty is only going to increase it. If you don't have a means in your society of getting people out of difficult situations, then they're going to end up staying there. And as a result, more people who fall into that position is only going to increase. So as a result, it's a two-front problem, because you need to deal with the practices that are putting strain on our planet, and you need to approach it in such a way that it doesn't make things worse for people. Because if you make things worse for people, you actually end up putting strain on through them anyway. So yeah, it means that all the kind of the talking points of, the only way that we're going to be able to sort of approach this problem is by sort of going back to Gaia and getting rid of all power and getting rid of all sort of like cars and things like that. It's nonsense. And Earthrising is built on a foundation of science given to us by the very charities who are looking to make this stuff happen in real life. So it's all verified stuff. It's got an informational booklet that comes with it that gives details on why every practice is sustainable and why every flip side of it is unsustainable. And it's even got bits in it that says, what can you do on an individual level? Earthrising has basically been designed from the ground up to be the most empowering thing we can possibly make in the face of our current situation.
That is absolutely incredible. I'm tearing up because of just hearing you talk about it. Like, literally, I was like, don't let tears fall right now. Like, if you start sobbing.
Oh, well, you know what? It's a very emotional thing.
It is.
Everyone is scared because if we don't do this right, it's only going to get worse. And if we keep fighting each other in order to over what is or isn't okay, then all we're going to do is take longer. And if we take longer, more damage is done. And it's only an intensifying problem. And oh god, when I first designed this game, the origin story of this game is that it was back in 2019, and I was feeling super low about the whole climate crisis thing. It felt impossible. Extinction Rebellion was at its height. Everyone was talking about how basically if we don't fix this, we'll die. Game over, man. We're out. You go, well, we can't seem to do anything about it, so if we're all going to die, then how depressing is that, right? When the message is prevailing to be, if we don't, we die, but not how we don't, then it ends up just feeling hopeless. So I went to see a film called 2040, very much against my will. I was in a very bad mood on the day. I did not want to go and see a film, but Ree was like, no, come and see this. It's important. We're going to go with some friends. You'll feel better afterwards. It'll be fine. Get some socialization in you. So I went to this film, and it was called 2040, and it basically spoke about how this Australian guy, Damon Gameau, I think it is, who had recently had a daughter who was 4 at the time of filming, and was like, this whole climate crisis thing is here, but I am worried for my daughter's future. What can we do about it? Can we do anything about it? And will it be enough, and will it be in time? And spoiler alert, the answer is yes. And one of the things it looked at was donut economics. And as you said, how you were almost tearing up, I left the cinema in tears because it was the first time I'd actually had that kind of injection of hope into me. And I had gone from it's hopeless, there's nothing we can do about it, to going, wow, actually, this has made me feel like we can do something. This has made me feel like it's possible. And more than anything, I wanted to give that back. If I can pass that forward, maybe that will make a difference. And as I say, one of the things it was talking about was donut economics. And it's got this amazing circular imagery to it, where it's, you're trying to increase the donut of our society inward to support more people, and trying to take the outer sort of bit back in so it doesn't over encroach onto the different problem areas of our society. And it's a way of looking at your society from a top-down perspective and valuing how much are we doing on which scales. And it just clicked in my head, a little bit like argumentative, I suppose. It just went, boom, there it is. And no joke, I went home, and it was 4 hours later, and I penned out a thing down on a piece of paper. And it's not really changed that much since. I've actually, because I've been on a few videos and things recently, I've actually got it here. I will show you. You can see me, obviously the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Can't. It really doesn't look too dissimilar, right?
Yeah. That looks a lot like what the board looks like right now.
Yeah. So it's pretty much the same thing. Ultimately, the basis for it has held strong. And I spoke with Damon, who made the film, and he played it and thought it was really cool. I spoke with Kate Rayworth, who made the donut economics model, and she played it, and her daughter played it, and they were like blown away, and they were like, "Oh, I always wanted to make Donutopoly, but just didn't have the time." And I was like, "Well, here it is." So it's they gave me even more insight into how it worked on an even like more exact level. And like we spoke about before, you've got to make sure it balances out with the fun.
Yes.
It doesn't matter it doesn't matter how accurate it is if it makes the game less fun.
Did you ever find that a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, what you think is going to be fun is often wildly different to what it is in play. Unless you're going to outright take something from a different game and run with that, and even then, like, that has to mesh with something else. You can't just have one mechanic for a game, and if it doesn't mesh right, then, But this is why it's so important to playtest, and even more importantly, blind playtest, where you're not coaching them. And then you see how it really stands up. But Earthrising is designed first and foremost to be a game, because if you lose people from fun, they don't take anything in. There's no point.
Right.
So if it's not fun, there's no point. So it has been absolutely, workshop to hell and made absolutely sure it is the most fun it can possibly be. It's cooperative, it's a race against time, it's relatively simple to play, but nonetheless, how you utilize what each other player has, and your asymmetric abilities and the cards that come up and etc. They really, you have to think about it carefully, and you've got to keep an eye on how much strain is being produced and whether or not that move will end up causing an ecological collapse or not. It's a little bit pandemic in a few ways, but in a pandemic has all that kind of movement to it where you have to very carefully decide how you're moving in order to get to the right places at the right time. Earthrising doesn't have movement so much, but nonetheless, you have to be very conscious of what actions you're using and where. So, yeah, it is kind of one of those games where if you like the sort of game that Pandemic is, then you're probably going to like Earthrising too. So, yeah, it's been hardcore made to be more than just its theme.
Oh, that's incredible. Very cool.
And thank you.
How have you guys focused on like reducing your impact on the environment with your whole design, I guess? And I mean, even manufacturing, like, we're not in an industry that's necessarily super friendly to the environment.
I mean, click on sort of 2 out of 3 board games, and they have heaps of plastic miniatures and huge amounts of sort of like little cubes and all this sort of thing. And if you're plastic conscious, if you're waste conscious, even to the point where, like, if you've got a card game and they've got a whole bunch of expansion packs, often those expansion packs will come in individual packages and wrappers and everything like that, and they'll all be split into different sections, and you'll go for an all-in pledge, and then all of a sudden you've got like 5-6 different boxes all wrapped in plastic and all this sort of thing, and you're like, this could fit into one box and have a hell of a lot less. But yes, so it's super important that as a game about being, changing that impact, Earthrising is effectively as impact-free as possible. So, turns out, game manufacturers are very unused to you saying to them, what's the greenest stuff you've got? They are sort of like, okay, we've got recycled plastic, and we've got, we've got recycled cardboard and that sort of thing. And some of the big ones are now getting a lot better in the sense they've got, what's it called? It's actually sustainably produced wood and cardboard for all of their stuff.
Cool.
It's got a proper certificate and all that sort of thing, and also make sure it's definitely sustainably produced. And yeah, it's coming on. It's going in the right direction, 100%. But you need to ask for it. So if there are any designers out there who are like, well, I want to make sustainable stuff, why is it that the quote that they give me is all just like a basic rundown? So the answer is because that's the cheapest. And they always assume that what everyone is going to want is going to be the cheapest. So if you put the stipulation to them, I want this to be, give me the cheapest, but also give me how much it would cost to make a game as ecologically friendly as possible. And in many cases, you'll see that the price is not a huge amount different. It's like, I don't know, maybe it might be 10 pence more, something like that, cents even, sorry. And obviously that super depends on the game. But yeah, it's the pricing is actually not as extreme as you might expect. And we managed to find a manufacturer who does 100% sustainability. So that they even down to the polythene wrapping that's normally around games, theirs is made of, I think it's seaweed. Does the same job, completely breaks down within like weeks of being in a compost heap, and yeah, is just great. All of their like inks and such like that, they're all dye-based inks, and so as a result, there's no what's it called? Basically, there are no issues caused by the production of the dyes or anything like that. All the cardboard's completely sustainably produced. The whole thing is 100% sustainable. We had to go for that. So we're super committed to getting that. And we're even looking at the possibility of trying to get the game shipped via train. Because obviously, there were no manufacturers that did 100% outside of China. But the offset to that is that in order to have things sent from China, they have to go a really long way. So we're looking at trains, because trains are much more eco-friendly than ships, which often use very dirty oil, and generally, because they're not on land and so no one will see it, think that they can just dump whatever into the sea and get away with it. And so as a result, it really lowers how much sort of carbon is used in order to transport the games. We're struggling to get exact prices back, but nonetheless, we're looking at whatever means we can, and we're going to detail exactly what we do and how we do it, so that other game designers can also come and find that information themselves and get that information, help more people be able to do it easier. Because I guess this is what Earthrising comes down to, which is the hardest thing to get, whether it be sustainably making games or actually living a sustainable life or having a sustainable society, is there is very little concrete information out there.
Yeah.
And that is what Earthrising tries to do. That's why we've got the informational booklet as a part of it and not as an add-on. Because that information is what makes the difference. People learning and people understanding what is or isn't and why that is, like with sources and everything. That's what makes the difference, because an informed people is an empowered people.
That is incredible. Very cool. Thanks so much.
That's all right. No worries. I could talk about this literally all day, so please do talk to me, tell me if I am going on too much.
No, that was great. I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on there before we move on to the next part?
Goodness. Yeah, I guess actually on the subject of it getting shipped and that, if for some reason we can't do trains or we can't find another non-shipping based thing, we will be offsetting all of our carbon footprint via a very well-known sort of carbon offsetting source called Tree Sisters, who basically put the money into a combination of growing trees and also into pro-equality sort of ventures. So things that improve quality of life for people in impoverished areas, provide sort of anti-baby drugs. I've completely forgotten the word.
Contraceptive,
that's the one. So contraceptive providing plans, all that sort of thing. They put the money into making those things happen. So even if we do end up having to put carbon into our world, we will put that back into things that literally forward the sustainability goal.
Very cool. Good to know. I'm blown away by how dedicated, and because some of this stuff, I wouldn't necessarily think about, or I would just think, well, it's got to be that way. You've got to use a boat to ship it around the world because that's what it's always been like. Mm-hmm. So I love how much thought you guys have put into this and trying to kind of counteract your impact, I guess, on the...
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to bigger industries and such, the board gaming world is small. Right. The amount of effect that we have on the globe is tiny, but nonetheless, it is, if we can make a change here, that will in turn encourage other people to make change in other areas. If they see that, well, if the guys in the board game industry can do it, then I guess since we have some kind of overlap in, I don't know, the book printing industry or something along those lines, then we can do it too. And it has that chain reaction. Every effort is never a wasted effort. And I think that's something that's always important, because even if just the fact that someone sees you're trying, it emboldens them to try too.
Lovely. Well, what kind of hobbies do you have outside of board games?
Totally. Okay, well, I'm a big video gamer, I won't lie. I'm really into sort of strategy gaming and such like that, which I suppose lends quite nicely into board gaming as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, though, I have a dog. His name is Tobin. He is a cryptid of an animal, ridiculous beast that I think I understand, and then he'll do something, and I absolutely do not understand him. But nonetheless, he's a ridiculous animal that we rescued, and I adore him. We take him on like 1 to 2 hour walks every day, and yeah, it's really nice that it's summer again, because now I can actually enjoy those.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I come from a background of, I was a published author in 2015, where I published a children's educational fiction book on the human body, where basically a pair of kids goes on a kind of inner space-esque journey through a little drone through the human body and experiences everything that happens in it in order to learn about it. And that was a blast. It was really great fun. Yeah, so I come from a background of writing. And effectively, I guess I don't write as much as I used to now that I'm doing board games. But like the drive for narrative, the drive for finding ways to portray things in a really interesting manner is something that I put into literally anything I do. Basically, if it has a story, you can count me in. Which actually, of course, I also do tabletop roleplay. I'm normally the games master, and as a result, I am often the one making narratives. So yeah.
I love it. What is there a favorite TTRPG?
I think I would have to go with Fate. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's effectively it's a very bare bones kind of, you have 4 what are called fudge dice, and they have a plus, a minus, and a circle or nothing on them. And you roll 4 of these for any action that you do. And so, for example, your skill might be strength. You're trying to force open a door, say, and maybe your skill is 3. You roll the dice, and you might get a plus, a minus, and a 0. And so, effectively, each plus gives you +1 to your skill. Each minus gives you -1 to your skill, and a 0 is nothing. So, as a result, you get a +1 to whatever it is that you rolled. The Game Master sets a difficulty level. So, let's say, for example, I had strength 3. And I needed to at least get 3 in order to get through. I roll my dice, and so long as I get all 0s or better, I can do it. Otherwise, if I get some minuses but no pluses or more than that, then I'm like, my strength is effectively 2, and so it's really difficult to get through. Since it's literally that simple, it's basically a very sort of bare bones kind of you can do anything with it kind of system. But my favorite part of it is the thing called consequences, where instead of someone taking damage or being hurt or getting freaked out or something like that, instead someone will take a consequence instead of being knocked out. So if it's a low consequence, it might be like, you get winded. So now someone can tap your winded thing, and they gain +2 to their next thing because you're winded, and now they gain an advantage over you because you've taken that consequence. But the player who takes the consequence gets to decide what it is, with GM approval, of course. So that means that everyone is involved in the narrative in a very strong way. You're deciding what happens to your character within the mechanics that have happened to it. If you get hit by a sword and you take only a minor consequence, well, that's okay. Like, it's just a minor consequence. Maybe it goes a little bit too close and you lose your footing. You don't actually get hit by the sword, but you lose your footing, and that's got you off guard. And then they can tap that, and there go, and get you even more, So it kind of has that joint, everyone's in charge sort of narrative flavor to it, and I love that. That is fantastic.
That is really awesome. That sounds entertaining. I'd love to try that sometime.
Yeah, definitely try it. You can get fudge dice super cheap, or alternatively just use online dice rollers. Like,
Oh, nice. Perfect. What about video games?
well, as I say, super into strategy stuff. So 4X games, or well, what is it? Well, I've been recently replaying XCOM 2. That's a good one. I've always been a fan of Civ. I've always been a fan of the. Oh goodness, I'm actually gonna have to quickly get my Steam library up. Yeah, loads. I mean, basically, it's a case of either it has a really good narrative or it's really strategy based.
Okay.
And I will go headlong into that. Exceptions to that might be that I used to play a hell of a lot of Borderlands 2.
Yes.
But, yeah, I could not get enough of that game. But nonetheless, it's kind of in the past now. So that sort of stuff, you know.
My wife and I are playing through 3 right now.
How is it?
I love it. I think it's so good. Like overall, everything's improved for the most part.
Yeah.
Borderlands 2 is still like it's
top tier.
Yeah, it's top tier. So
yeah, that's cool.
Well, to tie TTRPG and Borderlands, did you know that Leader Games and Nerdvana Games made Bunkers and Badasses?
I did not. That's cool.
So it's coming out Q3 is what they said. But I had a couple of people from Twitter come on and we played it as bonus episodes for the Board Game Community Show.
Amazing. That's awesome. Oh, I'm sorry I missed that.
No, it's fine. Go back and listen.
I will have to now. Get my sneak peek.
Yeah, it's fun. And I guess because I got a demo for pre-ordering it. So it's like playing through one of the quests in there, which was fun. And I was the GM, or they call it the BM, right?
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
And that was like my second or third time being a game master.
Awesome.
Thrown in the deep end.
How did you find it?
It was fun. Very, they were really nice. Like like obviously it's a small demo of it essentially. So they kept on rails for the most part.
Yeah.
But lots of
Did you make your own thing, or did you go with like a pre-gen like scenario?
It was one they had made. So,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, very rarely did I have to wander too much off of that. Every once in a while I was like, that's pretty clever. Like, I'm going to reward that and I'll just make it up as I go. And a lot of it was like obviously off book just because they brought something up and I was like, yeah, let's run with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of TTRPGs. You know, it's effectively a game that has no borders. And so as a result, you know, if you want to either run or be in a game that features a certain sort of type of thing, you can do that. You know, if you feel like this is a solution to your problem, it's not like Mass Effect or something where you're just like, well, I don't need to like stroke this person's ego or punch them in the face. I can there must be some middle grounds in here.
Yeah.
You know, you can do that, and it's really nice that there's that outlet, I suppose, for people to explore stories and narrative from a position of being in control. And I think it really opens people's minds to the possibility of how they can be a part of stories. And I think that's one of the things I love most about board games, and what drew me to it the most is that you can get that really nice fine-tuned balance of making your own kind of story and narrative and everything like that, whilst at the same time sort of you're within the confines of a world. And that's really cool. And anything that I can do to kind of bring board gaming, Earth Rising absolutely doesn't do this, heads up, but nonetheless, anything I can do to bring board gaming and TTRPG a little bit closer would make me very happy indeed.
I love it. Yeah. But kind of tying the 3 TTRPG video games and board games is like the illusion of choice. Have you played BioShock?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, the first one was essentially like the major theme was the illusion of choice.
Absolutely.
And I love that because you can have an open world video game that gives you the illusion of choice. And board games is the same way. Like, you have all of these choices, but you're still like constrained to the rules within the game. And
that's it.
TTRPGs, they still have rules, but it's a lot more open because you're not based on like you have a system, but essentially like you have an actual person who can think through things and change things and apply them. Yeah. It's just,
and maybe one day as tech progresses, we will one day have video games where it is like having a human GM in your game that is creating things as you go, and that would be insane, and I may possibly never come out. But that aside...
It was nice knowing you, Laurie.
Yeah, that's it. Bye.
It wouldn't be... I mean, it doesn't seem all that far off anymore with how just the development of technology and everything, and procedurally generated worlds, essentially, like looking at games.
I was thinking that, exactly.
Yeah, it's so wild.
All we need now is procedurally generated narratives to be a little bit better than they currently are.
Yeah. You're walking down the Panda and you meet a merchant. Wait, what? Exactly. So close, so close.
Yeah, that, or it always devolves into porn. And it's just like, no, not again.
Right.
Curse you, AI. You shouldn't have been trained on Twitter.
Exactly. You've got to put the parental lock on for the AI to learn.
That's it.
They're like, okay, 90% of what we do is this. Anyways, well, that was great. Yeah. Is there, as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
One thing I probably would say is, if anyone out there is thinking about making a game or is thinking that they are looking to in some way get involved in making some idea that they've had come to reality or whatever, no idea is perfect on your first go. It's so worth getting involved with people in your community and getting feedback and everything from even the earliest design point. I think this is one of the mistakes that I made really early on with my games, was going, I'm just going to work on this, and then when it's done, I'll start sharing it. Because you think you're done, and then you show it to a bunch of random people, and they go, this is really good. Here's all the reasons why it's terrible. And you're like, oh no, I thought this was perfect. This was my baby. This is amazing. I've worked for like a year and a half on this game, and it's just, what's happened? Seriously, don't worry about what people will think of you, because the board game community, by and large, is super lovely and friendly and generally just want to make things more fun. And so just get involved in communities, start showing your stuff to people, no matter how unfinished it is, no matter how bare bones it is. Start showing it off and going, hey guys, what do you think? How can I make this even better? Because nobody wants to steal your idea, but they do want to play it.
I think that's so interesting, because I remember when I first started designing some games, it was like, I need to keep this so secret so that nobody else will steal this. And it's like, no, nobody is interested in stealing your game idea. Like, they want you to make it so they don't have to make it.
Exactly, that's it. Oh my god, if anyone thinks that making a board game real is by any stretch easy or cheap, please, like if you've got a way, let me know. Because god, the pain that I've been through these last couple of years, if anyone asks why I dye my hair blue, it's because I have so many grey hairs from making board games.
This makes sense. That's smart.
It's tough. It's tough out there, and you may as well make life easier on yourself by surrounding yourself with people who are really interested in having fun with what you're doing. Because having fun is the point. And the moment you stop having fun, the moment there's no point. So just enjoy yourself, make your game fun, show it to people, let them help you make it funner. And that is how you do it.
Lovely. Well, during this whole time, did you get distracted? Did you think about a ridiculous theme?
Oh, a ridiculous theme. Yeah, okay. I did actually think about a ridiculous theme.
Yes.
And you know what? I had a little idea in the back burner of my brain being like, that would be so silly to make. And then my brain, being what it is, kept going and was like, yeah, but you could though.
Right.
So here's an idea. What if we turned the game Katamari into a board game? Okay.
Oh.
So if anyone hasn't played Katamari, it is basically a game where you are a tiny little, almost dust speck that is rolling around a little ball that's everything that is the same size as it or smaller sticks to. And you're rolling it around, you're collecting up bits and bits and bits and bits, and you're trying to make yourself bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually you're rolling up like buildings, and then you're rolling up like skyscrapers, and then you're rolling up countries and continents, and then the sea, and all sorts of stuff, and you get huge and ridiculous. And I gotta say, the more I think about it, I'm like, actually, that sounds ridiculous, and also a great deck builder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would work for a deck builder.
That's it. Like a kind of engine building thing where you're you're trying to get the small bits, and then with those small bits, you can cash them in for a bigger thing, and you're trying to get the biggest one until eventually, like, someone hits the biggest card type first. And you could even make the cards be like larger sizes as they go up in order to make it legitimately feeling like you're building your Katamari even bigger. And so, yeah. I was like, that's a ridiculous idea, and this is how it could work.
I love that. That's the fun thing with ridiculous theme is that you can think of anything ridiculous, and you don't necessarily have to flesh it out, but sometimes the brain starts working on it.
That's it. Yeah.
I gotta like look around my room. I'm gonna. What is it? What's that? Soze?
Oh, Kaiser Soze from The Usual Suspects.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna Kaiser Soze this.
Yeah. I won't deny that probably finding a ridiculous idea isn't very easy when you're surrounded by genuinely good board games.
I know. I'm like looking back there. I'm like, okay, don't look at that because
they're all good ideas. I don't want those.
Yeah. Mug maker. I've got a mug.
Mug maker.
You got to go for alliteration, right?
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that idea, that seems pretty straight up to me, because you've got that's all about ceramics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're making your mug on a wheel.
Yeah.
And you got to keep on spinning it.
And then you've got to add a little water to keep it pliable, and
that's it.
I think. I don't know. I've never made a mug. At a certain point, it's got to go in a kiln for so long. You don't want to over bake it. I think I need to know.
Maybe there's some push your luck mechanics in there. You know, do you keep it in the oven a little bit longer in order to get that nice finish, or do you accidentally leave it in too long and the whole thing cracks?
Exactly.
Oh, no. Or maybe it cracks, but now it's harakiri.
Ooh. Ta-da!
That was more valuable, even better.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to plug your social medias, any projects you've got coming on? Do you have a date for Earth Rising? All that.
Yeah, so basically we have a Discord channel where you can come and talk to us. And if, of course, I can't really plug a link, but nonetheless, we have a Facebook, which is SDR Games. We have Instagram. We have Twitter. We have, in fact, come follow me. I say random things that are definitely not allowed by the company. So my Twitter is Laurie J. Blake. The company handle is at SDRGames_studio. The Facebook is SDRGames.studio. I mean, do you have links and such that you can, like, are you able to put links in your podcasty bit?
Yeah. So I was going to say, you can check the show notes, and I will have the links for the Discord, and I'll put the Twitter handles on there, or social media handles on there.
I'm being a dunce, because basically what I should have said is all of it is available via our website of sdrgames.studio.
Yes, which I have pulled up right here. I could have thought of that too.
All of our info is there. The social medias, the Discord, the whole lot. Join our newsletter. You'll get a whole bunch of updates surrounding how Earth Rising is going and future games as well. Yeah, come, talk to us, get involved. We would love you to join us on our journey, because we're only just getting started.
Wonderful. Did you have a date? I thought I saw June 1st was the date, but that's not it anymore.
Yeah, it's not it anymore. So basically, we were looking at June because we wanted to keep it relatively close to when our original Kickstarter kind of got relaunched. And the reason it got relaunched is because we got an offer that allowed us to seriously lower our goal by I think it was like £8,000, something like that. So a huge amount. So we're now going to have a much lower goal. But we couldn't edit a goal on our Kickstarter, so we had to relaunch. But now we're getting a lot of people coming out of the woodwork being like, hey, I love your game. I want to help you make it a smashing success. But in order to get you there, I need a little bit more time. So, for example, your good self, we would not have been in time to be able to be on this podcast had we have launched when we did. But yeah, we're effectively creating a big old snowball of events and reviews and all this stuff to help us really smash it out of the park. And we're looking at late August or early September.
Well, thank you so much for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at NerdOutWithUs. And if there's a guest that you think would be good for the show, you could @ me on Twitter or email me the boardgamecommunityshow@gmail.com and request that either you or somebody else you know or want to know better in the community be on the show, and I'll reach out to them. Earth Rising is launching on Kickstarter August 24th. So they just announced it earlier this week, which is very, very exciting. I really wanted to play it before the episode actually came out so I could give them a glowing review at the end, but I ran out of time. I wasn't able to between vacation and other things. I still really want to dive in and play it before the Kickstarter starts, but the next best thing happened over on OrganisedFun, organized with an S. Phil and Mark played Earth Rising with Ree and Laurie, and they loved it. You can hear it in their voices how excited and how fun the game was and how much they enjoyed it. So that's saying something a lot, because they are like extra critical on Kickstarter games. I can't count how many times on their podcast where they're like, oh, this was a Kickstarter game. Like, I can tell it's a Kickstarter game. But they were very, very excited about this game. And I'm very excited about this game, not just because of the actual game looks awesome, but beyond that, just what they are doing, what they're trying to change, and just the good. You can tell they genuinely just want to help out the board game community and the world to make for a more sustainable world, more sustainable living. And I absolutely adore that and love that. So please, please, please go check out their social media, go check out their website. All that's in the show notes. The episode with Organized Fun is in the show notes as well. So go check that out. Really, this is such an amazing project. I'm really, really excited about it. If you enjoyed the episode and enjoyed the show in general, I would absolutely love and appreciate a review. 5 stars is great. If you can write up a short little review being like, oh, Riley, that guy's a weirdo, but it's great. It's a good show. Good enough. I would appreciate it. Whatever you want to say, if you want to appreciate it. And if not, I just appreciate you listening. Until next time, keep nerding out.